This is the numeracy procedural test for Year 9 from 2013. Question 1. Estimate the total cost. Now, one of the easiest ways to do this would be to round each value to the nearest 10. So £42.19 would be £40. £29.79 would be £30. £56.45 would be £60. And £72.99 would round to £70. Then the next job would be to add these up. Well, 40 and 60 makes 100, and 30 and 70 makes another 100. So this is approximately £200. This is a graph showing the exchange rate for pounds to euros. So underneath the graph we have two questions. First question is £15 equals how many euros? So you have to locate where £15 is, and that's on the horizontal axis here. And then you would read up to the graph and then read across. Now doing this on an iPad is a bit fiddly, but obviously doing it in the real test with a ruler would be much simpler. And what you can see is that comes out as 19 euros. Now the next question is how many pounds is 40 euros? Well, there are a few ways to do this. We could look at how many pounds 20 euros is, but I'm going to stay away from that part of the graph because I've already drawn near there, so I'm going to use 10 euros. Now 10 euros here on the graph is equal to £8. So 40 euros would be 4 times this amount, so it would be £32. Question 3. 629 subtract 32.5. Well, a nice simple way to do this would be to do it in columns. So I can have 629.0 subtract 32.5. I added the extra 0.0 so that my tenths column had digits in it. Now, I can't do 0 take away 5, so I would need to borrow from the 9. And now I can do the first two columns. So 10 take away 5 is 5, 8 take away 2 is 6. I can't do 2 take away 3, so I've got to borrow from the 6. And I can now do this, no problem at all. So the answer is 596.5. Question 4. Something percent of 800 grams is 200 grams. Well, I know half of 800 is 400, and if I halve 400, that's 200 grams. In other words, I quartered 800, and a quarter is 25%. Now the second part says, what is 20% of 90? Well, the first thing I would need to do is 10%, because that's the easiest percentage to work out. And to work out 10%, I would divide my £90 by 10, giving me £9. But I want 20, so I need 2 lots of that answer. So that's £18. Question 5. Write less than, greater than or equal to in each of the boxes to make these statements correct. Well, 20% and 0.02. Well, in order to make these equivalent, if I multiply the 0.02 by 100, which would make it into 2%, I can now see that 20% is clearly greater than 2%. Now then, what I know about this next question is 0.7 is really 7 tenths, and if I double the top and bottom of 4/5, it makes 8 tenths, and I know 7 tenths is less than 8 tenths. Now the third one, 1/8 is a bit of an interesting one really. Now an eighth as a decimal or percentage, if you actually carry out the division, it becomes 1, 2, 16, carry 4, gosh, I'm talking to myself here. That becomes 0.125 or 12.5%, which I know is definitely less than 15%. And finally, 95% and 19/20ths. Well, if I was to turn this into a fraction that had 100 on the denominator, I would do this by multiplying top and bottom by 5, and 5 19s are in fact 95. So 95% and 95 hundredths are in fact the same. Okay, 17.935 is on a calculator, and the first question says round this to 2 decimal places. Well, 17.935. 2 decimal places would be like cutting it off after the second decimal digit, which is the 3. So my number could be 17.93, or it could go up to become 17.94. The number that dictates whether I round up or not is the next digit here, which is a 5. And a 5 always makes things go up. So my answer is going to be 17.94. The next one says to round it to 2 significant figures. Now this time, 2 significant figures means you start counting from the front of the number. So it's 1, 2. Now that's my cut-off point there, where the decimal point is. So the number could stay 17, or it could go up to become 18. So I look after the cut-off point. That number there, the 9, is bigger than 5. So I do, in fact, round up, making my answer 18. Question 7. How many quarters are there in 5 3/4? Well, in every whole, there are 4 quarters. So what you would need to do is you would need to do 5 wholes times 4 quarters, which makes 20 quarters. But also, I've got 3 quarters. So I have, in fact, got 23 quarters in total. Now, the second part of this says write 37ths as a mixed number. Now, that line in between the top and the bottom really means divide. So how many 7s go into 30? Well, 4 7s make 28, with a remainder of 2, which is the numerator of the fraction, and then obviously the denominator stays the same, 7. This is a pie chart showing how Lauren spent her pocket money. The first question says, what fraction did Lauren spend on sports? And underneath then it says, write this fraction in its simplest form, and this is the bit that sometimes people forget to do. So, the fraction she spent on sports in its unsimplified form is 80 out of 360, because it's 360 degrees in a pie chart. Now, if I divide top and bottom by 10, it becomes 8 36ths. And then if I look at those two numbers and divide them both by 4, it becomes 2 ninths. And that is the final answer, 2 ninths. Now the next question says, Lauren spent £14 on clothes, so how much did she spend on transport? Well, I know then that 70 degrees is equivalent to £14 spent. Now, how can I then use that to work out how much is spent on transport? Well, if I were to divide both those numbers by 7, that would tell me that 10 degrees is equal to £2. So I look then at the size of the piece of pie chart for transport, which is 20 degrees, so that must be £4. Question 9. An aeroplane travels at 2,725 miles in 5 hours. What is its average speed? Well, the formula for average speed is distance over time, which is 2,725 is the distance, divided by 5, which is the time. So what we have to do now is work out this division. So how many 5s go into 2? Well, it doesn't. Carry the 2. How many 5s go into 27? Well, 5 5s make 25. Carry the 2. How many 5s go into 22? 4 5s make 20. Carry the 2. How many 5s go into 25? 5. So it is 545 miles per hour. Question 10. Well, this is a BIDMAS question. So in the first calculation, we have to do the bracket first. So it is going to be 28 minus 11 times 2. And the next calculation is we do the multiplication. So it becomes 28 minus 22. And finally subtract, and we get an answer of 6. Now in the second calculation, we must do the indices first. So 5 cubed. Well, that means 5 times 5 times 5. And that gives me 125. So then we do 2 times 125, which is 250. Question 11. Ali is using a map with a scale of 1 to 10,000. He walks on a path that measures 4 centimetres on the map. How many metres does he walk? Well, we must multiply by the scale on the map, which is 10,000. So that gives us 40,000 centimetres, and then we've been asked to work out how many meters this is, so then we would divide that 40,000 by 100, and we would get 400 meters. Here we have the marks for Class 9A in Science and Maths, and it's shown in a scatter diagram. So the first question is, how many pupils got more marks in Maths than Science? And the answer for that is 3. And I'll circle the 3 people now. So 1, 2, 3. Each of those scored more highly in their Maths. Now then, the next question says, one pupil was ill in his maths test. Circle the point on this graph that is most likely to show this pupil. Well, if we look at the pupil I'm circling in red, this pupil scored very highly in science, but I had a mark less than 5 for maths, so that looks like that's the pupil. Now, if I've already circled something from part 1, which I shouldn't have, then I can obviously go back and rub it out afterwards. Now, the final part says, what type of correlation does this show? Because the crosses are generally sloping upwards, this is a positive correlation. Question 13. Work out the circumference of this circle. The formula for circumference is c equals pi times diameter. So we've been asked to use pi as 3.14. Now the diameter of the circle hasn't been shown. What we've got is the radius, so we must double that, making a diameter of 6. And then we can work out 3.14 times 6 using a short multiplication sum. 6 4s are 24, so carry the 2. 1 6 is 6 and 2 is 8. 6 3s are 18, giving me an answer of 18.84 centimetres. Question 14. The cube root of 8 is 2, and this is because 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. The reciprocal of 2/3 is, now we invert the fraction, flip it, so it's 3 over 2, or 3 halves. Now here we have a function machine, and this is the formula that is used to change from temperature in degrees C to temperature in degrees F. The question underneath asks us, what is 30 degrees C in degrees F? So we put that 30 through the machine. So we would first of all do 30 times 1/5, or in other words, what is a fifth of 30? And we actually, in fact, therefore divide by 5, so it's 6. Then we would next times that 6 by 9, which gives us a 54. And final part of the machine tells us to add on 32, and that gives us a total of 86 degrees F. Question 16. 0.4 times 0.2. Well, we know 4 times 2 is 8. What we must be careful to do is make sure our answer has the same number of decimal places as the question has in total, which means it should be a 2 decimal place answer. So our answer must be 0.08. David invests £250 in an account. After a year, the amount has decreased by 3%. So how much money is there now? Well, the easiest percentage to work out, start off with, is 10%. And 10% of David's £250 is going to be £25, because I divide it by 10. Now from here I can work out 1% quite easily as well. I would just basically divide my 10% answer by 10. So that would give me 1% being 2.5, which is really £2.50. I can then from there work out 3%, because it would be 3 lots of my 1% answer, so that would be £7.50. Now I need to go back and check what the question wants me to do. After a year, the amount decreased by 3%, so how much money is in the account now? So I must do £250, take away £7.50, and that is going to leave me with £242.50. What is the bearing of B from A? So I need to know the clockwise angle from A that I would need to turn through in order to face B. Now, the nice property we have when we have a pair of north lines like this is these are a C-shaped angle or an allied angle, and their property is that they add to 180 degrees. So this angle would be 100 degrees, and that is in fact my bearing. Question 19. Rules of indices. So 10 to the power of 5 times 10 squared. Now the rule for multiplying indices is we simply add the indices. So 10 to the power 7 would be the answer. Now 10 to the power 9 divided by 10 cubed. When we divide, we subtract the powers. So 9 take away 3 would give me 10 to the power of 6. Question 20. Work out 11.07 divided by 0.9. Now when dividing by a decimal, we must change our division problem. So we're not going to divide by 0.9, but we are in fact going to divide by 9. So I've done that by multiplying my 0.9 by 10. So to make sure that the problem I'm working out doesn't have a different total, I must also multiply the 11.07 by 10. So I'm actually going to divide 110.7 by 9. And I would do this in the conventional way, and I would ask myself how many 9s go into 1, and it doesn't, so carry the 1. How many 9s go into 11? 1 with a remainder of 2. How many 9s go into 20? Well, 2 9s are 18, the remainder of 2. And how many 9s go into 27? 3. So the overall answer is 12.3. Complete this table. I need to write the standard form 3.9 times 10 to the 6 as an ordinary number. Now this really is 3.9 times a million, because it's got 6 zeros. So what I would then have to do is move my digits 6 places to the left, making them bigger, and my overall answer will be 3,900,000. And I just realised in my initial million there I missed out a 0.